Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. I'm your host, Ken M., and joining the panel today is the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And our comics blog head writer himself, the Bry Guy Signal.
What up, guys?
And we have to talk a little Star Wars, so we figured we'd open up the chair for another panelist to join in, and who better than no frills needed, no introduction. You heard him on the DC show. We brought him back for another go-round. It's Adam Deming.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to hit us up on that hashtag ODPHEE to join in the conversation, because big news happened. I will say arguably the biggest news story in a long time.
Yeah, I'd have to go with that. I mean, it kind of depends on who you're talking to, but yeah, most people would say it's biggest news.
I have to agree because, hey, I made the statement. The biggest news story of the week is Disney acquiring Fox Studios.
Oh, boy.
The ramifications of this are huge.
One would say there was a great disturbance in the Force.
Some could say that. I know Padawan is saying that.
Uh-huh.
Because first and foremost, before we devote the whole show to breaking down what that means for you, the moviegoer, what it means for Marvel Comics movies going forward, and all things in between, a little movie came out this past weekend. We talked a little bit on last week's show about Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Might have made $1 or $2.
Some would say yes. I have to agree with that statement. But I'm going to pass it around the panel. Now, we are going to be talking some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you have been forewarned.
Go see it.
You have been forewarned.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, you never know.
Everyone's doing it, man.
Don't
you want to be cool?
There's a lot of things going on in the world, so you know what?
This is true.
Some people haven't seen it yet, but if you haven't, we're giving you the warning for spoilers in 3, 2. So, as we were talking, the movie came out. Panel, what did you think?
I loved it. You know, it certainly has its issues. It's by no means perfect. No Star Wars movie ever is, although some people will say, you know, maybe Empire is perfect or you know, something else is perfect. I certainly enjoyed it. It was a fun watch. Definitely took multiple viewings for me to kind of digest everything, because the first viewing is everything's hitting you at once. It's, oh, look at the visuals, the music, the action, the dialogue. You're trying to take everything in at once. I would, if you have seen it once, I would definitely recommend it. Go see it again, just because, like I said, the first viewing, you're kind of getting everything thrown at you, and the second viewing, you're going to pick up on a lot more.
Adam, what did you think?
I loved it, too. I thought it was one of the better installments in the franchise, honestly. I think it's right up there with Empire, personally. I mean, I know that that's probably not the consensus opinion, but I liked the changes that they made. They unlike The Force Awakens, where it was just kind of like, oh, it's a nostalgia tour where they're doing pretty much the same things over and over again. This one, they lead you right up to those notes, and then you take a swift left turn. And I loved that. I absolutely loved the, just you thought you were going to get one thing, and you may be a little tired of that one thing, and then you don't realize it until they take it in a new direction. And I felt it was very refreshing.
Bry Guy, what you got?
I thought it was good. I definitely had my complaints with it, but it was in no way bad. As you heard on the other when we talked in depth about Star Wars, I didn't want to be a rehash of Empire, and in that aspect, they succeeded. It wasn't a rehashing of it.
It borrowed some thematic elements, but it wasn't
at the same time,
retelling.
Here's the thing that you got to look at, and I thought of that too. Like, yeah, there's some thematic elements, and I'm sure you would. Obviously, you just agree, Josh. The problem is, though, it's the 8th episode in a movie series. At some point, some stuff will overlap.
Yeah.
But I will say for the most part, it wasn't like, okay, I'm just watching Empire Strikes Back 2017. It wasn't that, and that's what I was happy with. But it isn't my favorite Star Wars, but I'm in no way saying it was bad.
No, I definitely have to agree with you. I personally loved it. It is my second favorite Star Wars movie behind Empire. It definitely borrowed a lot of elements from Empire in the sense of bridging the gap of the story.
Return of the Jedi, too, actually.
I was going to say Return of the Jedi.
Too.
Yeah, I noticed that the second viewing.
It kind of took the elements of that. You know, I think it saw that The Force Awakens did pretty much A New Hope, and then they're like, okay, well, they're going to expect us to do this, so why don't we just put both of them together and then just do our own twist on it, and then we can just go forward.
I was going to say, with the fleet at the end with Snoke, like, oh, look, your fleet is being destroyed. It's very much like, I kind of thought, all right, that's a little
Well,
like
the whole
Jedi.
confrontation with Snoke had elements of Emperor and
We'll
Luke
say the
and Darth
moment
Vader.
Kylo brings Rey into that, I'll call it a throne room. I don't know if it's actually called that. It's Snoke's throne room. That's
his bachelor pad.
exactly yes.
With
That's
his bachelor robes.
That's essentially Vader bringing Luke into the throne room in the second Death Star.
Yeah.
It's like we said, borrowing thematic elements, but with a twist on it.
Yeah, no, they definitely threw a lot of twists in there, but they did borrow a lot. I mean, the one area that I found major flaws in was the Finn story at the casino. It honestly was like, why didn't they just recast or put in Lando Calrissian instead of Benicio del Toro's character?
No, you know what, though? I'm going to defend that because that was another twist on it. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's getting his. Lando redeems himself by the time Return of the Jedi comes around. I don't think Benicio's getting that same thing.
No,
I
in
think
fact,
he's just an amoral guy who's only out for himself.
And in fact, coming out of this, I kind of want to learn a bit more about Benicio del Toro's character. I don't want to know everything. I want to kind of learn a little bit, though, because he had one line in the movie where Rose and Finn are asking him if he can do it, and he says, me and the security for the First Order go way back.
Yeah.
Like, what does that entail?
I was mesmerized by his performance.
Yeah.
I loved all the acting, really. Was
all the acting was very top
Oh,
shelf.
yeah, definitely.
Everybody did an excellent job that, and Benicio was one of the standouts. I really want to know more about his character.
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like that's where I have complaints is seeing it twice now. The first time I didn't care for the whole casino thing at all, and then when we got to it the second time, I'm just like, crap, we're back to this part already.
Well, I see the thing I think with the casino scene, while, yeah, there are some parts of it that are a little hokey, the one drunken alien.
Yeah, that
was
very hokey.
Well, it's hokey, but it serves a purpose later in the movie
that was
because
Chekhov's coins, if you will.
Yeah, the guy's drunkenly putting in coins into BB-8, but he drunkenly puts in so many that it helps him fight off the police in the jail cell.
Well, here's the thing that I look at. The casino scene affects the movie in no way. Think about it. The whole plot line with Finn and Rose doesn't affect the outcome of the story.
No,
the thing of it is, though, is it introduces Benicio del Toro's scene, who ends up screwing them later in the movie, and it also serves as world building because this is the first time in Star Wars that we have seen a casino gambling scene like this.
But
for that matter, people who could be considered antagonists outside the Empire / First Order dynamic.
Because Brian, I know you will know this more so than our other two panelists. There have been mentions of gambling and card playing in this in multiple many books over the course of Star Wars' long and storied history. We have yet to actually see one.
Here's the thing, though, and that's what actually comes down to. The casino is not Star Wars-y at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's aliens in there, but overall, like, the set design, it doesn't look very futuristic at all. It looks like a casino, like, out of Casino Royale or something.
What are you talking about? This is a long time ago in the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, but no, I'm with Brian on this one. I mean, it just kind of looked... It didn't look in mesh with typically what we see with Star Wars.
Well, I think the thing you got to look at is they kind of inferred later that all the people there aren't the cleanest of people.
No.
They've all got so it's that clean, nice looking exterior, but underneath that's real sleazy.
No, I'm not even referring to that. Like, I'm trying to put this nicely. Like, if you look at other set pieces in Star Wars, you can tell, okay, this is futuristic, with the exception of like Tatooine, where it's kind of run down, but it's like this is supposed to be a high class society casino. It looks like something you could find on Earth. Like, you could walk into a nicer casino here in like Vegas or something, like out in Vegas. Like, you could go there and you'd see something similar to it.
It just kind of looked a little out of place, so to speak, from what we're used to seeing with Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's not saying is something wrong with it, but I stick to my guns with this one. I kind of thought we could have done without it for the movie. It didn't hurt it by any means.
It gave you a little bit of backstory into Rose.
But it was a little backstory, yeah, sure. But I mean, overall, was it necessary? Not really, in my opinion. But it wasn't a horrible thing. It wasn't like oh my gosh, like you're wasting time with this film and putting this in there.
No, and I know the first time I saw the movie, the entire sequence felt a little long. Second viewing, it was shorter than I remembered.
Well, yeah, because you kind of knew what was coming, obviously, seeing it the first time.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, I thought it was great. The only other aspect I thought there was a little more humor in it. It kind of felt, I'm not going to say Guardians of the Galaxy-ish, but there were certain elements like the opening scene with Poe talking to the admiral there and
General Hux.
Yeah, put me on hold and playing that game around.
Well, that's Poe's character in the Force Awakens when he got captured and
It
Kylo Ren was staring at him. He goes, "All right, who talks first? I talk first. You talk first."
It's just hard to understand with all the apparatus. Like, he was always like, okay, he doesn't care. He's just like, I'm going to screw with you. I don't really give a crap.
Well, plus he was stalling for time because you saw the thing.
Oh yeah, no, it made sense, but I just thought it was just a little too humorous from what I'm used to seeing with Star Wars.
I don't know. Like, Star Wars is always, and the fans themselves, as a collective, seem to take it so seriously when really they're popcorn movies.
Well,
it's
so
like I always feel like people who, not necessarily you, because you're just pointing it out, but people who really, really harped on it on the internet, like as soon as it came out.
I was going to say, some people, like, they
just went
hate
overboard.
There was a lot of people bashing
like-
the movie because of it, and it just didn't really seem to make a lot of sense.
Here's the thing you can look at. Batman v Superman, when it came out, people hated it because it was so dark. There was no humor in it. If you did that for this movie, people would have complained about the same thing. Oh, there's no humor in it.
Well, God forbid there's something to break the tension of the highly dramatic stakes you have going on for this 2.5 hour movie.
But due to, but I think the humor did help, but I just think there was just maybe a little too much to what we're used to seeing with
I'll say there's always been humor in Star Wars. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is from Empire Strikes Back when Han is trying to get Leia and C-3PO out of Hoth base, and C-3PO, being C-3PO, he doesn't move very fast, is taking a little longer. So Han turns around and yells at him, "Come on, Goldenrod, or you're going to become a permanent resident."
I was going to say, that's one thing I wanted to point out, and I'm glad you mentioned, Josh. Empire, the one everyone says is, oh, it's the darkest sequel. It's like, it actually had a lot of humor in it if you really think about it. I mean, one of my favorite lines is when Han's arguing with Leia, and he's like, "Sorry, I didn't have time to run it through the committee," and she just yells, "I am not a committee."
Or even C-3PO comes and tells him something that's probably real obvious what's wrong with the Falcon in that same movie, and he yells at him, "Chewie, plug in the professor and see if he can find out what's wrong with the Falcon."
Yeah, no, I understand there's certain humor in it. I just felt that maybe there was just a little more than I'm used to seeing with a Star Wars movie. I'm not saying it was awful, and definitely I'm not bashing the movie because of it. I just thought there was just a little more than I'm used to seeing that I personally like seeing.
And, I mean, let's not forget, at least the humor hit.
Yeah.
Unlike something like in The Phantom Menace, where, like, every single joke that they tried to pull off
Let's
just
try
fell
spinning. That's a good
really,
move.
really flat.
There was one plot point I wanted to mention. Obviously, Finn and Rose have this relationship building. How did you guys feel when she saved him from dying?
I thought that was a great way to introduce the character and win her over with everybody because that was a certified BA move to do.
Oh yeah, because here's the thing with me and Rose. I was already
You know her personally?
no. I was already over for the character from the premiere because the actress Kelly Marie Tran, if you haven't seen, go look up articles. She was the most adorable thing on the red carpet in Los Angeles because she was crying every 5 seconds. She couldn't believe she was there. And it was such a fan moment because she's crying. I can't believe she's in a Star Wars. So I was already over for it, but I'm with Ken. That was a complete BA move for her to just go in there and save him. Because in her line, we got to save what we love.
I agree with that to a certain extent. On the other hand, it's like you've known him for less than a day. How can you say that you love him?
Also,
like, for real. I mean,
and this is
Yeah, that's a good point with that too. Brett?
I don't know if this makes me sound like a morbid bean, but I personally would have thought it'd been a really cool thing if, like, Finn died. Like, they set it up, the music's going, that he's on his suicide run. He's going to give his life to save the Resistance. And I really feel like that could have been a cool character arc for Rey in the 9th movie.
How about this? How about this possibility? She still saves him, but then she goes and does it. You've already spent this entire movie growing with this character in Rose and really getting to like her because, quite frankly, she's very, very likable.
Yeah.
And then she just sacrifices herself maybe to be with her sister or whatever.
Actually,
that would be heartbreaking, and it would force Finn to really grow as a character.
Yeah.
I agree with that point.
I was like, because it wouldn't make much sense for Finn to sacrifice himself again or attempt to again in the next movie because that takes the character backwards. You've already had him try to sacrifice himself. Somebody saved him because they loved him. Oh, I'm just going to try and sacrifice myself again.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing, especially with how many other characters, notable ones, that were killed off in the movie. I mean, you had Captain Phantasm.
Phasma, yeah.
Or Phasma, I'm sorry.
Admiral
She got
Akbar.
I said this at the premiere when we were there. Phasma got the Boba Fett treatment. Looks awesome. Is a total badass. In it for like 5 minutes.
Well, and that kind of rubbed me a little bit because I know coming out of Force Awakens, people were kind of miffed that she got so much hype and such from the various advertising, and she really wasn't in it that much.
I was going to say, I was one of those people. I was annoyed. I was like...
No, yeah, and then you don't worry about it with this one. You're going to see Phasma, and she's in it for like, what, 30 seconds?
Yeah, but I mean, I contend the Boba Fett comparison for one thing. Boba Fett looks cool, and everybody talks about his
you might want to be careful what you say here.
He doesn't do anything.
Give it time.
He doesn't do anything.
He's not wrong.
He shows up to pick up Han. He doesn't even capture Han. He just collects the bounty on him. He brings
tracks
him to Jabba, and then he gets shot in Return of the Jedi. That's all he does.
He actually didn't get shot. He got his jetpack.
Well, he got killed is what I'm saying.
In theory.
Here's the thing, though. It's like Fett, he tracked the Millennium Falcon, and he's the one who brought Vader, and Vader was the one who had to confront Lando, and he's the whole reason the Empire's there.
But he's talked about how he's so badass, and then he doesn't do anything badass.
Well, he hasn't really said he's badass. It's more
people.
Yeah, this
it's
host
all
is
secondhand.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to ask,
he's no good to me dead.
The one thing I want to get your guys' opinion, killing Snoke.
See, this will go back to one thing too. One thing in the Star Wars mythos, and I'm not sure why they do this, but it seems like recently or actually you could take from Boba Fett going on forward, every time they introduce a villain or a notable Empire evil character, they don't really take the time to develop them or really to kind of flesh the backstory out, and they kill them off before you can really understand it.
And I knew you were going to bring this point up. In regards to Palpatine, for example, you learned who he was or first introduced to him in Empire Strikes Back. You really got to know him in Return of the Jedi. You didn't know that much about him until 25 or however many years later it was until you got the prequels.
Right.
You knew he was, you knew he was Emperor Palpatine, leader of the Empire. You didn't know he was a senator from Naboo who manipulated two sides of the galaxy into a war and everything else until however many years later in Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. We might get something in the next movie. I don't know. Personally, I would like a little bit, but leave something to the mystery. Leave something to your imagination.
I was going to say I'd like a little, but here's what I want to ask you, and this is actually something I had with a coworker of mine earlier today. Out of all those villains in the movie, who's been your favorite so far?
Boba Fett.
Not the current two, Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Who has been the most interesting of the villains?
I'd have to say Snoke, simply because he seems like Palpatine on steroids.
All right, fair assessment.
I've got it. I mean, this is going to be like so Bush League and cliche, but I really do think they did a really good job with Kylo Ren, specifically in this film.
Yeah.
In fleshing out his character. Snoke, I want to know more about him, but I need to know more about him. What are his motivations? How did he rise to power? I can't say that he's the best villain without having more development for me.
I got to say it's Kylo Ren if you're going to make me choose out of the previous two. Because, he's the one that's kind of more developed. And you kind of see that he's not exactly a Vader clone. He's just kind of like a child that still is not matured with the power level that he has.
And that's the thing. Why would we want to... We have Kylo Ren. They're focusing on him being the villain. From a storytelling aspect, I feel like Snoke existed from the standpoint that he was the way that Kylo Ren can take control of the First Order and they can further develop him. If you want to have an in-depth character where they're going with Kylo Ren, why are you going to throw in him another villain who's technically the true big bad when you're focusing on the secondary guy?
That's a very good point. So to wrap up the segment and our final thoughts on Star Wars The Last Jedi, I'll pass it around the panel one last time. Padawan, what you got on that?
Like I said before, I really enjoyed the movie. I'm very, very interested to see where they go from it because they could have, like we said, they could have done Empire over again and that would have led into Return of the Jedi. I'm very intrigued to see where they go with this. Snoke's dead. The Resistance is really in shambles. They're really up, you know what creek without a paddle. They really don't have a lot going for them. It's like Rey says at the end of the movie, how can we build a rebellion from this? I'm very intrigued to see where it goes because I have no idea where this is going to go.
Adam?
Same here. I guess the main point that I would make is to just go see it because it is very, very good on many levels. And it does, like Padawan said, leave things wide open for a wide variety of interpretations and directions that they could go in. And that, to me, is the most exciting part.
Bri?
I was going to say, yes, it seems like I've been slamming the movie, but I in no way thought it was bad. It just, I had my flaws with it, but I overall would say go see it for yourself, see what you think, and I really did have a good time walking into the theater. Really, what I just want to see is for 6 is
Nine.
not 6, yeah, 9. Sorry, you get them all mixed up from time to time. But I just don't want to see Star Killer Base 2. That's all I really don't want to see.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
I gotta definitely agree with it. I mean, like I said, I thought Last Jedi is probably the second best one they've ever done. You can argue with that with New Hope. It definitely did not fully copy Empire, even though it kind of borrowed from that and Return a little bit. But that's not a bad thing. And going into Episode 9, I'm just hoping no Ewoks or anything like that. I just want to see maybe Boba Fett make a run-in and actually redeem himself.
I think in regards to the Porgs, they might make a cameo. You might see one in passing in the Falcon, but they're not going to be as featured as they are in this one.
And I'm okay with that. Let us know what you think on social media. Hit us up, join the conversation, hashtag ODPHE. We're going to take a quick break and be right back.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for the second segment of this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. And no bigger story in a long time came out other than Disney bought Fox Studios.
Not just some of Fox Studios, darn near all of it.
Yeah, it is truly impressive that Disney has acquired the rights to so many different properties. So we said in a previous episode we were going to talk majority of an episode of our show about it. So here we are breaking it down. So I'm going to pass it around the panel. What do you guys think about it? We'll start with Padawan.
I love the move. I know I've said this to a couple of people, and I know we've said this off air when we go to see movies. The MCU prior to Fox, we were kind of wondering what they were going to do with it, because I know you've said, Ken, that they're kind of going through all their good stories. What are they going to do? Their hands were kind of tied. This is a stimulus shot in that arm.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you go from what are they going to do to, oh, they can do this, oh, they can do that, oh, they can go there, oh, they can go over here.
The doors are open a lot more for where they can go, because one of the drawbacks I'm seeing maybe with the MCU, and this is a minor one, is, there's so many iconic stories, but in dealing with the whole Marvel universe, you're dealing with the Fantastic Four. You're dealing with the X-Men. You're not just dealing with the Avengers verse. And I think that kind of plays into, if they really want to make these iconic moments hit the big screen, they need everybody involved. And I don't think that you can sell Inhumans as being the new X-Men and everybody's going to buy it.
Nope.
Because obviously the TV show did not do as well in the ratings.
No.
And, I mean, for whatever flaws there were, it didn't pan out and didn't really connect. So I think that if they were going to try including them in as a replacement for the X-Men in some of the MCU stories coming up, this move definitely helps fix that for them. So, Adam, what do you think about the move?
I think from a creative standpoint, I'm as excited as anybody to have those characters back in the Marvel Universe and the opportunities that it creates. On a larger level, I'm not really a big fan of the move, mostly because, I don't want 1 or 2 or 3 companies owning everything. I feel like that's bad for business in general. Everything winds up being homogenized. Everything winds up being the same with no oversight, and everybody is... it gets filtered through only a couple of different lenses, and that's just not what life is about. Life is about all sorts of different experiences, and I feel like the entertainment we consume and we create has the opportunity to reflect that, and when you do something like this, when something like this happens, that minimizes the effect of that.
Yeah, I could understand that point. I mean, one of the biggest things that I'm worried about to a degree is Marvel does have some edgier characters. I mean, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Daredevil in its current incarnation on Netflix.
Yep.
Ghost Rider. Are these characters going to get watered down? And more importantly, if they're bringing in characters to the MCU like Wolverine, like Deadpool, who have a very noted stance of character. What's that, Pat?
Well, go ahead, finish your statement.
Okay. What I'm saying with this is, with these characters, I don't want them toned down and Disneyized, I guess, to where they're cartoon characters instead of being their actual characters.
They're not, because I know the day the deal was announced on Thursday, Disney had a quasi-emergency shareholders call, and CEO Bob Iger was on the conference call, and I know Deadpool 2 was brought up specifically because I know there was some concern from people. It's Disney; they don't really do R-rated movies. They don't really do edgy stuff. Are you going to really change anything with this? And he said, and I'm not direct quoting him, essentially he said, we know nothing's going to change with Deadpool 2. We know there's a market out there for this. If there's a market out there for this, we will do it. We just have to let people know we're doing it.
Absolutely. Braga.
I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at. It's like, I don't want to see Deadpool get... Because, I mean, we can all agree that the Marvel movies, since they are owned by Disney, they're a little lighthearted, and that no way means they're bad. I don't want to see Deadpool be, like, family-friendly. He's not. And I guess that's what I just don't want to see. And the other thing is that I'm worried about is, okay, I know we're getting another X-Men movie, The Dark Phoenix, next year. Mm-hmm. And that brings me into, I don't want to see some of the X-Men characters, like their actors, go away. Like, I really like seeing Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy as Professor X and Magneto, respectively. And it's like, I really just want them to keep coming back.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the deal is going to be with that.
I guess the thing is, if you get new actors, that's fine, but I don't want to see a reboot of X-Men movies. Like, okay, we're going to do origin story for the X-Men. It's like, okay, we've been seeing the X-Men since the early 2000s. I really don't think we need that.
I think if they were going to integrate new X-Men, for lack of a better term, I think they do it similar to how they had done Spider-Man with Homecoming. It's like everybody knows that origin already. Everybody knows their deal. That's one of the benefits of having the X-Men having been done for so long by somebody else is that everybody knows them already. So we can just do our own stories.
And that's what I'm hoping. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Do our own their own stories, and you still know the characters. They're just being played by other people.
Yeah, if they just do that, I'm fine with it. But it's like, I don't want to see like another X-Men First Class, but the MCU version of it. It's like, we saw this.
See, and I don't think you would, because one, the new reboot that, like you said, with First Class, they actually was a successful movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I really liked it.
I think that if it went the route of the most recent Fantastic Four, they would do a reboot.
Yeah.
And they would, because I think that is going to be the one property when that comes over officially that Disney is going to make the most focus on to bring back to superstardom.
I think they have to, because some of the earlier X-Men movies were a little messy and not that great. There were some hits and misses, but by and large, I think a lot of people from X-Men First Class on have enjoyed the subsequent movies. Yeah, some of them have been better than others, but by and large, they are enjoyable.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, I can only think of 2 X-Men movies that I hate. And it's like, other than that, I like watching all the other ones.
But the Fantastic Four movies, the first one was all right. Not that great. Not the worst thing ever. But the sequel and then the most recent one, just awful. Just awful.
Yeah, it definitely
Galacticus was a giant space cloud.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of misses with the most recent Fantastic Four movie. But I think that Disney is going to make sure that they fix that issue. But I think as far as the X-Men goes, I think for majority of their work, I don't think they're going to mess with too much.
No.
I think that certain properties, the one I'm kind of more worried about is New Mutants, because I know we're planning on doing a horror trilogy with that. I don't know if that's going to change after the current movie comes out.
I think that'll depend on how well the movie does.
Yeah, I do too.
I think because it's kind of like going back to Deadpool. I would be more concerned about the whole Deadpool thing if it hadn't done well. If it did okay, not the greatest thing in the world, I would be concerned. But I think Disney is no idiots when it comes to making money and being a business and making movies. They know it did well. They're just going to be the parent handing their kid an allowance and saying, "Oh, you need X amount of dollars? Here you go. Go for it."
If they have a property that's making money on its own, which is why they bought it.
If it ain't broke.
Exactly. Why would they screw around with it?
I think in terms of the new Mutants, if the movie does well, yeah, sure, here you need you need $25 million for the next movie? Okay, here you go.
I hope so, because I actually love the idea of them doing a horror franchise with the mutant universe.
It's different.
Yeah,
I mean, just in
that's
the,
why.
Just in the superhero genre in general, not just the mutants. It's like no one really look at all the MCU movies. Look at the DC movies. We don't have a horror comic book movie. That's really cool.
Friend of the show, Mike Ciatoli, big horror fan.
Yes.
Not really that big a superhero fan, being drawn into the New Mutants because it focuses on a genre that he happens to be very familiar with and hold dear to his heart.
Very knowledgeable
branching out and finding new people, new fans.
And I think that that's one thing that either this move is really going to excel with, or it's going to kind of push some people away. I personally think it's going to bring people in because you have some certain fans that are strictly X-Men fans, and that's the only movies they want to see. But now if you're bringing characters into the Avengers verse, or the MCU, that's what's going to draw them in. And then it's either going to mesh well or they're going to just say, you know what, this is my cup of java and go.
I think if it does anything, the intriguing thing is they can get real creative with their phases now. Whereas, it's kind of like almost like a cookie cutter. Okay, you're going to see this, you're going to see that, and it's eventually going to lead up to an Avengers movie. With this, you can do a X-Men Gold movie. You can do something of the sort. You can do an X-Men movie. You can do a Fantastic Four. You can get really diverse with it.
Yeah, you can go a lot of different places with it, which is what I love having Marvel getting majority of all their characters back. I noticed that certain ones are still at Sony, I believe.
Yeah, the list of the characters they don't have is real small.
Yeah, but it opens the possibilities to do very big crossovers and involve everybody in.
My biggest question from a creative standpoint is we know that they will work the X-Men in. Mm-hmm. How will they do it? That's my big question because you could do it a number of different ways. I'm wondering if they do the alternate universe thing.
I actually have a theory about this.
Okay.
My theory, and I'm going to go super fanboy about this.
Wait, you don't do that normally?
No, but this is going to be super break it down. If you have ever read X-Men Onslaught, and what Franklin Richards does to save the Fantastic Four and Avengers, and he creates a whole different universe, that's what I think he does with it.
So what you're suggesting and maybe endorsing is they introduce the Fantastic Four first, and in so doing, Franklin Richards, this powerful mutant, which to this point in the Marvel cinematic universe, mutants don't really exist.
Right.
Inhumans were a placeholder for mutants. So what you're suggesting then is maybe that Franklin is the first one. He becomes all powerful, Onslaught, the whole thing, and instead of sending some of the more prominent Avengers into a little own pocket universe, bringing the X-Men in from a different universe.
That is what I'm thinking.
My theory is, and this is just mine, I feel like mutants, they're going to write them in that mutants were very rare in the MCU. Like, there weren't a lot of them, but there were some. After the ramifications of Infinity War, mutants become more widespread. So by having them, like, older, like some very few mutants existed, that's how you can write in people like Magneto was around in World War II. Wolverine was around all that time, but since they weren't really widespread, like, people didn't really know about it and just sort of brushed off it as, like, either they didn't exist or they were just made up.
Do you think then that the movie after Infinity War, whatever they're going to wind up titling it, Infinity War 2, whatever,
I think it's Avengers 4.
Avengers 4, because you know that it's going to be a two-parter regardless.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe one of the ramifications, one of the side effects of Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet and his wielding of it, does he accidentally create a whole bunch of mutants that get left over when they put everything else back?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, something happens in Infinity War that, like, something happens.
Kind of, ironically enough, sort of a House of M thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
in reverse.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, a few mutants exist. That's how you can have, like, Wolverine. He's got the adamantium. Like, he was a government experiment that they kept on the down low, so no one really knew about it.
Ooh, does he have vibranium claws in this one?
No, I don't think they would. I mean, I love where you're going with that.
He would be just like this giant tuning fork.
Yeah, it would be amazing. No, but I think that I could fully see that happening. That Thanos either triggers it, or this is where they kind of find Franklin Richards, and this is where he starts slowly bringing people in.
And the thing I'm going to hate, though, and I'm pretty sure everyone in this room will agree with me, I know Hugh Jackman said after Logan it was his last one, but he wanted to be an Avenger. I would love it if he comes back for the MCU, but if he doesn't, it's still going to be... I'm looking forward to see whoever they would pick, but I think we can all agree it's still going to be really weird to see a non-Hugh Jackman.
I will say, if in regards to Fantastic Four, they can introduce him at the end of the Avengers Infinity War. They've got an in.
Yeah, they do.
They have an in. For those who aren't aware, following the Ultron offensive, aka Avengers 2, the Avengers abandoned the tower in New York, and it was sold off to an unknown buyer. So at this point, we don't know who owns Avenger Tower. It could be one Reed Richards.
So are you saying that instead of a giant A on the top of the building, there could be a giant B on the top of the building?
I think you're going to see a number 4 on top of that building.
There'd be a number 4. It's an easy in. We don't know who. All that was said was that from the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wikipedia, following Civil War, Stark sold the tower and arranged for Happy Hogan to transport the Avengers-related items to the upstate Avengers facility. Of course, this is in Spider-Man. The cargo plane was hijacked, yada yada. But he sold the tower. They never said who.
It is possible, and that would be a good lead into. I mean, I personally think, and this is my unofficial opinion, Hugh Jackman is going to be in the bonus scene at the end of Infinity War.
I really hope so.
And I've discussed this. I've discussed this with some people. I'm banking on it being him because think about this. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's hard. They're almost done filming if they're not done filming already." They filmed the bonus scene of Avengers 1 after they were already done filming. Go back and watch that scene specifically. You see Chris Evans not really eating anything. It's because he couldn't because he was in shape for the next movie he was filming. And they can easily do something and have Wolverine show up. They can have Wolverine show up in like his jacket, the jeans. He doesn't even have to be ripped.
Yeah, it's all post-prod stuff.
Just walk in, cigar in his mouth. Heard you need some help.
And see, that's where I'm leading in. Like, okay, some mutants already exist, but there are very few of them. And then, okay, it builds into, all right, Thanos screwed everything up, and now mutants show up. It's like you can have Hugh Jackman, then he has his adamantium claws.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be hard to put him in a bonus scene if they just want to have him sitting in a bar and just all of a sudden he's watching TV and he's like, hey, yeah. If he does something like that, I could see that. And then that's going to take, what, a day to film, if even?
If half a day.
Yeah. So there is plenty of time to put a bonus scene in, and I think especially because they have not really revealed too many details for Phase 4.
Which is kind of what led us to kind of wonder and speculate about this whole purchase was normally Marvel is very open about the movies they're going to do. They're going to tell you, oh, we're doing, Civil War, we're doing Ant-Man, we're doing this, we're doing that. This, it's like, okay, we're naming 2 movies. The rest of them, we're going to keep them close to the chest.
I would say the only one I know, and I said this on an earlier podcast, I just know Guardians 3 is going to be in Phase 4.
Guardians 3 and Captain Marvel.
Yep.
That is the only 2 that I know of. And after that, it's kind of wide open. And except there is a Untitled Spider-Man that's coming too.
Right.
The sequel to Homecoming.
Spider-Man senior prom or whatever.
Yeah. It'll be like graduation
freshman
or something.
year.
Yeah, something like that. But either way, I think overall, to finish up about the segment, I think that the move is good for a creative standpoint, but I do agree with Adam, though. I do like seeing more creativity. And what I'm kind of hoping that this causes is for other companies maybe to start getting more independent comics. Like if you think about it, take it back to like when there was just Marvel and DC, and that was the only comics you knew about, and that was the only ones that ever got any kind of recognition. This is the 25th year of Image Comics, and look at what came out from that, from people just breaking away and they didn't want to be part of the norm.
I was going to say, while we mentioned Image real quick, it's like if you really want a fun story about how a comic company started, go on YouTube and look up the sci-fi documentary on how Image formed and what was going on in that time frame for comics. Ken introduced me to this documentary, and it is really neat.
Yeah, but to look at the aspect of that you had creators that didn't want to do what everybody else was doing, so they did their own thing. You started seeing more recognition to the independent scene. I mean, independent comics have always been there. I mean, Dark Horse has been one of the longest mainstays I know. They do great work. Their properties are not going to be under the Disney banner. I know there's a new Hellboy coming out that's under a different studio. What I'm saying with this is this should either inspire more companies to start branching out and doing their own things, or Marvel and DC, I mean, obviously they have a lot of, resources behind them, and they have a lot of hype that now they're the most established 2 comic companies in the world. They can go a lot of different places, and I just hope that they do it and they bring their comics to life and they really resonate with the fans. And I hope that if the worst case scenario, this inspires other people to start their own movie companies and really kind of develop other characters. So then that way there's not so much, one-sided or another for movies coming forward.
And who knows, maybe we'll actually get a whole generation of movie makers, filmmakers, who aren't just relying on sequels and rehashes.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to finish up talking about Disney buying Fox Studios. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We're now on iTunes. That's right. The Ocho Duro Parlay Hour is now on iTunes. So download, rate, and subscribe. Spread the word, and thank you for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour.
I'm the street light guiding you home. Avoid the wrong step into dark.
Closing out this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, talking Disney buying Fox Studios and what that means for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, amongst others. We've talked a little bit about Fantastic Four. We talked a little bit about the X-Men coming over. One major character, though, that has kind of fallen under the radar that I think the panel will agree is going to be the most intriguing one of them all is Doctor Doom is now finally in the MCU.
Absolutely. I'm 100% stoked for this. Doctor Doom is one of my favorite supervillains of all time.
I was going to say, Adam, why don't you break it down for our listening audience? Why is Doom so important?
Doctor Doom, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't really particularly care too much for the Fantastic Four. I recognize their significance and their importance, but a modern comic book audience, it's a little passé for them. That being said, probably their biggest legacy, I guess you could say, is introducing a bunch of different characters, foremost among them Doctor Doom. He has an incredibly tragic backstory, much like Magneto, where even though he's evil, I mean, he's an evil fascist dictator of his own nation. You know, he heavily dabbles in sorcery. He is, he rules with an iron fist. He focuses on world domination and everything. But he comes from a background that he was just very downtrodden. He brought himself out of obscurity to become a very influential scientist alongside Reed Richards. And then he has his face scarred. So it's almost as if he brought himself up out of the doldrums only to be brought right back down again, and it just sends him right off the deep end. And who can't really feel that, honestly? He's very layered and very complex, and that's why he's so good.
He's one of the most polarizing characters in comics because he is evil, but I think when you talk about your typical villains, the ones that are so driven by their own means are the ones that are the most fascinating. And I think that in the sense of Magneto, in the sense of Lex Luthor, Doom is up there with that.
And he's always... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I'm obviously more of a DC fan, but Magneto is one of my favorite comic book villains because, like Adam said, his backstory, and yes, he does a lot of terrible things against humanity in the name of mutant kind, but if you read his backstory, it's like you understand why he hates humans. All his life, he has seen the worst that humanity can be, and they've treated him differently only because he has gifts.
Yeah, you want him to fail in the end because he's trying to wipe out humankind in the case of Magneto, or dominate the world in the case of Doctor Doom. But then there are those things about them that make you really sympathize with them. Like who in comics loves their mother more than Doctor Doom does?
That's a very valid argument.
He went literally to Mephisto, the rulers of one of the hell dimensions of the Marvel Universe, to bust her out of hell. Who else can say that?
And I mean, that's
some love right there.
Heck yeah.
Doom is on a whole other level of if he is driven for a goal, he will accomplish it.
He's the evil Batman of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, he is a perfect combination of Lex Luthor and Batman.
And that's the thing. Also, you just got to go with the fact the guy looks cool and he has awesome powers. Same with Magneto. It's like, if anything else, they just look awesome and they have neat powers to go with it.
Doctor Doom and Magneto are so cool that you can completely disregard the fact that they have really, really stupid names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how good they are.
Hey, people like Magneto's name because it lets them know that he has the power of magnets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is if they really want to introduce him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've got it in, as I like to say. Sokovia, as we know from the movies to this point, a little bit of a mess.
A little
broken. To this point, we don't know who, if anybody, is helping them out rebuild. Dr. Doom, a little wealthy.
Which, by the way, why are the Avengers doing that? They're kind of being jerks about it.
Yeah, I mean, so as we know, Dr. Doom got a bit of money, can step in there and say, hey, see, nobody's really trying to help you out here. Well, let me help you out.
I mean, that's even one thing Zemo mentions in Civil War. Is like, Avengers showed up, saved the day, destroyed my home, went home.
Yeah, and what they did with it, I mean, his background as a character in the comics is not Sokovian. Sokovia doesn't even exist, so far as I know, in the Marvel comics. But they made him Sokovia. So they have this a precedent already of changing people's nationalities, because guess what? They're fake countries. You can make them anything you want. Who's to say that Dr. Doom, like Ken said, comes in, helps him out financially, and kind of takes over the country in a very literal sense, renames it Latveria.
It's quite possible. I mean, it'd be a very quick Band-Aid to cover up.
And it's something that there's already sort of precedent for that, quote unquote quick Band-Aid easy in. When they introduced Spider-Man into the MCU, they treated, hey, he's a guy who's already been here, he's already been around, he's already doing his thing.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to waste any time doing an intro. I mean, if they did a Doom introduction, like a backstory of Doom, I think that would go over well.
I think that they should do that because they've screwed up on that twice on the Fox
They could just
end.
give him a solo movie.
They could do that. I think if they do anything to kind of explain his backlog, let's be real, he's a villain. He's going to monologue.
Oh, yeah, he does speak a lot. A lot.
And he very much enjoys
But he
hearing himself
looks,
speak.
again,
Yes.
he looks cool doing it, so
Well,
that's
no
why
question.
you care.
No,
question.
He's definitely one of the most imposing characters that you'll see visually.
And he has diplomatic immunity.
Yes.
That's true.
The whole backstory
But it just
of Doom,
has to get revoked.
Yes, you just need to see or read a lot of Doom stories throughout the Marvel Comics line. We could go on with them. I know personally, now with him being there, I kind of want to see Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars come to life, maybe as like Avengers 5. I know it's wishful thinking, but hey, I like the dream.
Let's do a little bit of fan casting. Who would you cast as Dr. Doom in the MCU?
Oh, gosh.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I hadn't even given that any
Okay.
thought.
Jamie Lannister from Game of Thrones.
I was just going to say Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Thank you.
Waldau, however you say his last
I would
name.
be fine with that. I mean, heck, if they're not going to go the same casting route as they did. Oh, no, you know what? Christoph Waltz would be a really
Actually,
good
yeah, that's
Okay.
even better.
Now that I think about it.
I would go
Yeah.
with Christoph Waltz.
Yeah,
He's
that'd be a good one.
excellent. He has
And
gravitas. He already has the accent.
He's already got experience playing villains.
I was
Yes,
going to
he
say,
does.
if you want a good Christoph Waltz movie, Django Unchained. Bear in mind, you got to be a Tarantino fan, but you can see, like, this guy can act. He's a very talented actor. He could pull off Doom.
Absolutely. So going into that, I think we can agree on the Marvel move for their franchise is going to be a big one. I think Disney now acquiring all the MCU characters is going to be a very big move. I think it's going to spark maybe a little debate about other studios getting involved and maybe branching out in their own franchises. But I think overall it's going to be a win-win. My personal
Yes.
opinion.
At least for the short term, and definitely in terms of the MCU movies.
Yeah, I was going to say that is one thing I wanted to say real quick is a lot of people are wondering, okay, you've been building up for 10 years for Infinity War. Ever since the Marvel movie started, it's like after it's done, where you're going. Now that you have all the Fox characters, it really opens the doors what you can do.
Absolutely. It's going to be really interesting to watch. And I'm not sure even if they're going to be involved with the TV universe. We're talking about Legion and The Gifted, which, by the way, had one of the best mid-season finales on record.
Got to catch up.
You need to catch up. Everybody needs to catch up on that show because I think a lot of people are sleeping on it. We're going to close out this week's episode by we usually give our recommendations for things to do this weekend, but it is the holidays. We want to wish a happy holidays to everybody that is listening to the podcast. We really appreciate your support. And we want to go around the panel. What is your holiday recommendation for our listening audience? We'll start with Adam.
I think that it's important in this holiday season with a lot of the stuff that we hear on the radio and see on the news and just see in our normal lives that we need to focus on what the holidays really mean. And so in the spirit of that, I think that I would recommend everybody watch It's a Wonderful Life for a little bit of pick-me-up. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. It was a tradition in my family for a while. We would read from the Bible and then the Christmas story, and then we would watch It's a Wonderful Life, and half of my family would fall asleep. But I always stayed up and watched the whole thing because I think now more than ever, it's that kind of positive message needs to resonate. And so that would be my recommendation.
Bry Guy?
I actually have two that I want to mention. Being as I'm the comics expert here at ODPH, or comics blogger, I should say, I'm going to recommend Hellboy Krampusnacht, which is a one-shot from Dark Horse coming out, and I'm pretty sure I butchered the name. But basically, the long story is we get to see Hellboy take on Santa's devil brother. He gets to go. It's a comic where Hellboy goes and fights Krampus. Just that sells itself.
That pretty much would sell itself. If
That
you're a fan,
sounds awesome.
if you're a fan of Hellboy, you're going to get into it. And with the new movie coming out next year, I think you're going to see a lot more Hellboy comics coming out.
The other one I got to mention, it's a big favorite of mine just in general, and there's a lot of debate around this one. Die Hard.
Die Hard is the ultimate Christmas movie.
Come on, it's Die Hard.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Pad, what you got this week?
I'm going to recommend you go. I know Freeform now is doing their usual 25 Days of Christmas with all the great movies. I'm going to recommend you go watch one of the older Christmas movies, whichever one you can watch. There's just something timely and classic about them that you just, as good as some of the movies are today, can't hold a candle to something like, Year Without a Santa Claus, Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes, any of those old Christmas movies that, like, from a kid, you might not have seen in a few years. There's just something about them.
There's a certain level of innocence.
Yes.
It really resonates with us on a nostalgic level, I think, because even though most of them were made in the 60s, they got played all the time.
Yep.
That's
Because
still our generation's nostalgia.
That's the thing. Our parents saw them, so they showed it to us, and we still grew up.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I could go on the TV route and say everybody should watch Happy, because I don't know if that's really a Christmas story, but it's centered around Christmas. It's on Sci-Fi. It is awesome. It is. You just need to catch up on that. But I guess I'll keep it with the traditional theme, because at holiday times they're always a good thing, and it's always good to spend time with family and friends, and especially with how crazy life gets at times. I'm just gonna say one of my favorite Christmas movies, because Die Hard is the ultimate Christmas movie.
Thank you.
Is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, because you honestly need a good laugh, and sometimes they'll just bring a tear to your eye because you're laughing so hard at just old school comedy at its finest. Let us know what you're watching this holiday season. If there's anything we should be really covering, throw it up on the hashtag ODPHEE. So on behalf of the panel, we want to thank Adam Deming for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me on.
Bry Guy Signal.
Glad to always be here. I'm just a phone call away.
Absolutely. Padawan J.
Thank you.
And I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you for listening to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time. Happy holidays.